Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is a faith-driven powerhouse empowering solo moms worldwide. She's a mentor, author of Courage to Believe, and host of Solo Moms Talk. Rosemary, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Joy. I appreciate being here.
All right. So yeah, I want us to, talk about the beginning, your background and daily work. So what drew you to mentoring solo moms and how has faith shaped your approach?
Mm, that's a loaded question, but I'll answer it as best I can. So, what drove me to support solo moms was because I was one myself. And it was a journey from being abandoned with my 2 and 4 year old by my husband. And the struggle I went through trying to figure out life without a partner and scared to death because I I was left to raise 2 children and I felt like I couldn't even raise myself. And so a while after that, I joined the discovery group at my church. And during the discovery group, it was 9 weeks, and there were like about 13 or 14 of us women. And each of us were given the opportunity to talk about our lives, what we've been through, our experiences, stuff like that. And it was in a private, very sacred group. We weren't allowed to talk about it outside. And so I'm listening to these people talk, and I'm thinking to myself, I wish I had this when my kids were younger. Because a lot of times when you're struggling, you don't necessarily want somebody to hand you help. What you want is a listening ear, an understanding friend, somebody who's there as solid support, right? And mentor.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking about it. And for the whole 9 weeks, that's all that was going through my mind. And I did it a second week time because I wanted to train to facilitate, to be a facilitator for this discovery group. I was so inspired by it. It also helped me to discover that God was my father. It was a church related discovery group. So we explore the Bible and God as father. And I said to God, we need to get this for single moms. We need to get this for single moms. And God being the God he is, like, why don't you do it? And so I was tasked with this mission to find a way that moms like me could get the support they need, even if it's just the emotional support. And it was a struggle because when I looked up the term single mom online, what I got back was a ton of garbage thrown back at me because of this mindset and culture surrounding the term single mom. And so I set out to kill that definition and that's why I use Solo Moms Talk in my podcast because I wanted to change the narrative around moms who are raising their children alone. And also for people to recognize that you didn't have to be an unmarried mom to be a single mom. You could be a widow. You could still have a husband, married, living at home, cooking for him, and you're still parenting solo. So hope that answers your question, but that's how that started.
It does actually. It answers my question. So how do you help moms shift from survival, like from survival mode to, thriving?
So what I try to do is to help, is to ask moms
Hmm.
to first think about yourself. And because a lot of times as moms, we want to cling to the children, and that's our purpose. And I only care about my children. I used to talk about self-care a lot because I realized that unless you take care of yourself, then you can't take care of anybody else. And there was one mom I asked when I was interviewing her, so what do you do? How do you practice self-care? And she said to me, I have no time for self-care. I have to take care of my kids. And and I was like, this has to stop.
Yeah.
Because I was one of those mom. I didn't say it, but I was running for the bus one day and my body wouldn't move because I wouldn't take care of myself. I was working, I was taking care of the kids, and I was focused on them without realizing that not taking care of me was not taking care of them. Because not only are you not ever in the right frame of mind, you're tired, you're exhausted, but you're not setting a good example for them. Because setting a good example, not only telling them not to lie or steal or stuff like that, it goes into how you care for yourself, the responsibility you adapt so that they can know that it's okay to take care of yourself. It's okay to draw boundaries and take care of your mental health. And so that's why I focus on the mom. And I ask mom, take care of you because that's the only way you can take care of your children and be a good mom. That's how you be a good mom, taking care of you. The other way is that, excuse me, I want moms to understand that they're not damaged. You know,
Yeah.
you may have made bad decisions in the past. Who hasn't? We've all made a wrong decision, a bad decision, a decision that blows back on us. It doesn't make us any less of a human being. It doesn't make us any less of a parent. And the most important thing, God doesn't see you differently. I've been in church where I was getting divorced and I was practically an outcast because now you're divorced, you're not a human anymore, right? And there are a lot of divorced moms, single moms, who are just ostracized and cast aside because they're a blemish to the church. You're not a blemish to God. When Hagar ran away, and if you don't know who Hagar is, Hagar was Sarah's maid. Sarah is the wife of Abraham. God promised Abraham a son, but they were 90 years old, and Sarah was like, I'm too old. My eggs are shriveled up. I can't have kids. Why don't you go sleep with my maid? And so we could have that son. But it wasn't the promise, and that's not how it was supposed to happen. And this woman, this maid, this slave, she became pregnant with Sarah's husband's child. And it didn't make for a good household, as you can imagine. So this woman had to run away with her pregnant belly into the wilderness. And while she was in the wilderness, single mom, pregnant with a married man's child, God Himself visited her. Not to, lambast her and curse her out and tell her how bad you are, but to love on her and see her, right?
Yeah.
The other story I always bring up because man will treat you anyway. And when I say man, I just mean people will treat you bad because of how they see you. Jesus looks on you with grace and kindness. Now, I will emphasize God does not condone sin. So you can't just live your life anyway and say, oh, God loves me anyway. But Jesus loves you. The woman who was caught in adultery, I love to tell this story because we often want to throw stones. Not just the people in the olden days want to throw stones. We want to throw stones at each other because we've never done anything wrong. But when these people came to Jesus and said, she sinned, she has all these husbands, we want to stone her because that's what the law say. What do you say? And Jesus eventually asked, who is without sin? You throw the first stone. And everybody walked away because we all sin, right? We all did wrong. But Jesus looked on her and said, where are they? Where are your accusers? And she said, I don't know. They left. And Jesus said, well, I don't condemn you. And I want you as a single mom to put yourself in that woman's shoe or Hagar's shoe. No matter what you've done, if you open your heart to God, to Jesus, He will forgive you and He will protect you and He will come for you. He won't hunt you down to ostracize you, but to love on you and to let you know that He cares for you. So these are the things I want mothers to recognize, because your baby, your children, your child, those are precious to God. And God has given you care, control, and leadership over those lives. So He's going to take care of you. And we must recognize that.
All right, so yeah, this has actually been really, really touching, actually, because I have noticed, especially among single moms, right? They do not really love themselves, honestly. Maybe they love their children, but
Mm-hmm.
this self-love is not always there. And I like
Right.
that we preach that self-love to them, because you can only love people when you love yourself, right? So yeah, I
Yeah.
I love that. And yes, thank you so much for that, actually. So your podcast, it was you stopped, you delayed your podcast for 6 years due to fear. So what was a key turning point for you?
The key turning point was, well, there's several things, but the
Mm,
one event that really pushed me forward was I attended Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within event. And
mm,
it was 4 days of madness, but it was madness that transformed my way of thinking.
mm,
And one of the pivotal thought was that what you have to say is too important, not for you. This isn't
mm,
about you.
mm,
This is about that person who needs to hear that message. Someone asked me once, you know, if God says that the only way to Him is through Jesus, what about the person in the nether regions of Africa or somewhere in the world who've never heard of Jesus? What about them?
mm,
And I said, God will find a way to reach that person. And you may be that person. You may be the way to lead that
mm,
person, right? And you don't
mm,
have to be a preacher, a teacher, or write a devotional. Whatever it is that God has placed on your heart to do, He's not just doing it for you, for your benefit. He's also doing it so you can be a light to someone else. And that's what I discovered attending this event. And that was a pivotal point because I came back home and I was recording, getting interviews, and just doing that. I was like doing everything I was supposed to be doing for, the 6 years prior. So, yeah.
mm. All right, wow. That was, a very inspiring turning point, right? And yeah, I
Mhm.
am glad you you started your podcast again, right? Because if you didn't, we might not even be talking now.
That's
So yeah,
right.
thank God you did.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would actually like to ask you, because my podcast, yeah, it's for young adults in their
Hmm.
20s specifically, but yeah, there are also young moms in their 20s that probably even need guidance onto, how to go about life. Some are single moms, some are married, but then they are single. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. They are inside,
Oh, I
they are
definitely
married.
do. I
Yes.
definitely know what they mean.
Very good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what advice do you have? Because I know you've been giving a whole lot of advice from the beginning, but I feel like you should just send out a message to these women, letting them know, they are not alone and these are what they should do to, live a happier life.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Sure. So I got married at 20. I had my first child at 23. So I have walked a journey as well.
Mhm.
And one of the things I wish I had known was that the love yourself part. You have to know who you are as a person and not just as an individual or as a mom, not just as a mom, but as an individual. And who are you in God's kingdom if you're a Christian, right? And even
Mm,
if you're not, in this whole universe is God's kingdom. What's
mm,
your role in it? You're not just a mother. You are an individual.
mm,
And you have to think about that. What is it that I'm put on earth to do?
mm,
Because those children are going to grow up one day and they're going to be off trying to find their purpose.
mm,
So, what is your purpose in life? And my practical suggestion is start to do some self-reflection. Whether you're married or you're single, do some self-reflection. Get yourself a notebook and start to write down, who am I?
mm,
And if that is very hard for you, that's where you start. How do you define who you are,
mm,
right? And
mm,
then write down what is it you want in life? What do I want? And it's okay to, if it's about your children, it's okay to write it's about your children. I want them to be this, I want them to be that. But try to focus on yourself. Be selfish for a minute. I know it's very hard for parents to be selfish.
mm,
But try to be selfish because, in this respect, when you work through this exercise, it will always benefit whatever you do that's healthy for you will work
mm,
positively for your children.
mm,
So I journal a lot. I encourage journal. I'm just rabid about journaling. I'm just an addict when it comes to journaling.
mm,
Write down everything that's going on in your head, good, bad, and ugly.
mm,
If you're a Christian and you believe in God, pray to Him, talk to Him, be mad at Him. He's not surprised. One thing you have to understand, God knows whatever you're doing right now, God knows. Whatever you're thinking, He knows. Whatever will happen 10 years from now in your life, He knows. So He's not surprised. Go ahead and tell Him how you feel and what you're feeling and write down those things. So the self-reflection is very useful for connecting your life and instead of always struggling and all these thoughts going around in your head. The other thing I want you to do is to understand that you're not alone. We always say that, but you can share your burden with other people, right? And the way
mm,
you share it is not always, sometimes we don't like to share everything with people, and you don't have to. But join a community, even if you're just sitting back listening to what's being said, you will be amazed at how
mm,
your perspective change when you hear what other people are saying.
mm,
This is what happened to me in the discovery group. Because sometimes we think our life is worse, right? Our
mm,
kids are the worst. I am the poorest. I'm the most miserable. There's nobody as miserable as I am until you start listening to other people's story. And so I would recommend that you find the group somewhere, connect with them, whether it's over Zoom or on Facebook, wherever you can find that common, bond, the empathy, And you don't have to put your story out there. You just have to listen. It will
Mm.
give you perspective. So, not a lot, but I think that would help you to have a starting point, know where to start from and use that as stepping stone, the journaling, writing down, the self-reflection. And if you know and want to trust God, trust him. He loves you.
Of us, actually. Wow, this has been uplifting, actually. And yes, thank you so much for this. And finally, I would like to, ask you, what is your definition of success?
Mm, that one takes some thought. I think success is personal, number one. And number two, if you're fulfilled, if what you do and who you are fulfills you, but also adds something to another person's life, I see that as success. I'm not saying you please everybody because you can't.
Yeah.
I'm saying that if you're feeling fulfilled with who you are as a person and what you're doing, and who you are as a person and what you're doing positively impacts someone else's life, that is success. If there's money, then that's icing on the cake. But the cake
Wow.
is you and the other person.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. That's a pretty interesting take on success, actually. Yeah, this has been uplifting, grounding, and insightful, actually. So thank you so much for this. And
Thank
where
you.
can listeners get to know more about you and what you do?
Okay, so you can find me at jrosemarie.com. I have a lot of stuff there. I'm on Instagram at SoloMoms Talk. And most places I'm either SoloMoms Talk or J Rosemarie. And yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for that. And thanks for tuning in to Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, make sure to share to someone who you think might need this. And also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episode. Thank you, Rosemary. Do have a wonderful day. And this was
Thank you,
amazing.
Joy. I appreciate you. Take
All
care.
right.